As the conflict between Ukraine and Russia drags into its fourth year, recent developments in U.S. Ukraine relations have raised significant concerns regarding military support and intelligence sharing crucial for Kyiv's defense efforts. The U.S. has officially paused intelligence sharing with Ukraine, a move that could severely hinder the Ukrainian military's ability to effectively target Russian forces. CIA Director John Ratcliffe confirmed this abrupt shift, indicating that President Donald Trump questioned Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's commitment to peace negotiations, leading to the decision to pause military aid and intelligence support. In a parliamentary session, British opposition leader Sir Keir Starmer addressed concerns regarding the US's changing stance. When asked if Trump could still be considered a reliable ally, Starmer emphasized the necessity for the UK to maintain strong ties with both Europe and the US, stating, "We must not choose between the US and Europe." The implications of this intelligence suspension have drawn sharp criticism from Ukraine, with reports suggesting that the country could run out of essential defense systems, including U.S. Patriot missiles, within a matter of days. The stakes are high, as Ukraine's reliance on U.S. support has been integral to its defense strategy. U.S. military assistance has not only included artillery and armored vehicles but has also acted as a diplomatic framework encouraging European nations to contribute to Ukraine's defense. As such, the recent pause raises fears that Russian forces may exploit the gap in Ukrainian capabilities, a scenario that recalls previous U.S. aid suspensions which resulted in intensified Russian offensives. The situation is further complicated by Zelensky's reaction to the suspension of military aid. Following a contentious meeting with Trump at the White House. Describing the encounter as regrettable, Zelensky has pivoted toward exploring peace talks under Trump's leadership, despite the legal barriers that currently prevent him from negotiating directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin has expressed cautious optimism about the U.S. aid pause, framing it as a potential shift towards peace negotiations, albeit under terms heavily skewed in Russia's favor. In the meantime, European leaders are mobilizing their resources to step up defense spending in response to the shifting dynamics. As President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen outlined a 5-part ReArm Europe plan. She stressed the urgency for EU member states to enhance their military capabilities independently of US support. This initiative aims to boost defense expenditures significantly, potentially reaching near €800 billion over 4 years, which could reinforce Ukraine's defense against ongoing Russian aggression. Despite the uncertainty surrounding U.S. military assistance, Ukrainian officials remain resolute in their defense efforts and their pursuit of self-sufficiency in military production. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal reported that Ukraine has significantly ramped up its defense manufacturing capabilities, currently producing around 33% of its military needs domestically, with goals to increase that figure substantially in the coming years. As the conflict continues to evolve, the outcome of U.S. policy and European responses will play critical roles in shaping the battlefield dynamics. The coming weeks will be crucial for Ukraine as it seeks to navigate the challenges posed by reduced U.S. support while bolstering its alliances within Europe and preparing for potential negotiations that could redefine the future of the conflict. In a significant and alarming development, the United States has temporarily halted military aid to Ukraine, a decision that could have profound implications for the ongoing conflict with Russia. On March 3, President Donald Trump ordered this pause, citing a need to review the aid until he is convinced that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is genuinely pursuing peace negotiations with Russia. This move has raised serious concerns among military analysts and Ukrainian officials, who warn that the suspension of critical military supplies could diminish Ukraine's defense capabilities at a crucial juncture in the conflict. The U.S. has been a vital ally to Ukraine, providing essential military assistance including artillery, ammunition, armored vehicles, and advanced air defense systems like the Patriot batteries. With the aid pause in effect, reports indicate that Ukraine may exhaust its supply of U.S. artillery shells by mid-2025, while its Patriot missile reserves could be depleted much sooner, potentially leaving critical infrastructure vulnerable to Russian strikes. A Ukrainian official highlighted the precarious nature of this situation, noting that the country relies heavily on Patriot systems to shield its cities from missile attacks. While the immediate frontline appears stable, experts caution that the long-term impacts of the aid suspension could be severe. Historical precedents suggest that Russian forces may seek to exploit any Ukrainian weaknesses that arise from a lack of supplies. During previous aid pauses, Russia intensified its operations, capitalizing on Ukrainian supply shortages to gain ground. The current operational tempo of Russian forces in various Ukrainian regions suggests that they are already preparing to take advantage of this latest development. In response to the U.S. aid pause, the European Commission unveiled a bold initiative aimed at bolstering European defense capabilities and supporting Ukraine. President Ursula von der Leyen announced the ReArm Europe Plan, which aims to facilitate increased military spending among EU member states. This plan could potentially mobilize close to €800 billion, $849 billion over 4 years, significantly enhancing Europe's military readiness amid the ongoing crisis. The proposal includes measures to allow member states to exceed budget deficits for defense purposes, thus enabling a rapid increase in military expenditures. Ukrainian President Zelensky has been proactive in seeking support from international leaders, emphasizing the importance of continued military assistance to sustain Ukraine's defense efforts. In discussions with various European leaders, he underscored that the proposed EU defense funding would critically enhance Ukraine's air defense systems and missile capabilities, laying a stronger foundation for the country's military operations. Simultaneously, Ukraine has made considerable strides in expanding its domestic defense production capabilities throughout the war. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal reported that the country currently produces approximately 33% of its military needs, with ambitious plans to increase this to over 50% by the end of 2025. This includes a significant enhancement in artillery and drone production, largely supported by European investments in the Ukrainian defense industry. Such developments highlight Ukraine's commitment to achieving greater self-sufficiency in its military capabilities, although this remains contingent on continued external support in the near term. The Kremlin has reacted to the U.S. aid pause with cautious optimism, framing it as an opportunity to push for peace negotiations. Russian officials have expressed hope that the suspension will lead Ukraine to reconsider its position, although they continue to demand unconditional capitulation from Ukraine as a precondition for any negotiations. Notably, Russian President Vladimir Putin has not offered ceasefires or concessions, maintaining a hardline stance that aims to secure territorial gains through sustained military pressure. As the conflict escalates, the high casualty rates resulting from Russia's aggressive tactics underscore the humanitarian toll of the war. The Kremlin's strategy appears focused on gradual territorial acquisition despite the heavy losses incurred by Russian forces. This approach raises questions about the long-term sustainability of Russia's military efforts and the potential for a protracted conflict. Looking ahead, the situation remains fluid, with the potential for further developments as both sides recalibrate their strategies in response to changes in military support and battlefield dynamics. The upcoming months will be critical for Ukraine as it navigates the complexities of international diplomacy while seeking to maintain its defensive posture against a persistently aggressive adversary. In the evolving landscape of international diplomacy, recent developments involving key global leaders are reshaping the geopolitical framework, particularly concerning the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. With U.S. President Donald Trump's administration indicating a shift in strategy, notably the suspension of military aid to Ukraine, the implications for Ukrainian sovereignty and the broader balance of power are profound. Last week, a contentious meeting between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky underscored the precariousness of Ukraine's situation. Observers noted Trump's apparent disdain for Zelensky, which raises questions about the future of U.S. support for Ukraine as the war with Russia continues. Following this meeting, Zelensky met with European leaders to bolster support, with countries like Britain and France offering peacekeeping troops, a move that, while symbolically significant, may lack the necessary military muscle without U.S. backing. Angela Stent, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution and expert on U.S.-Russia relations, emphasized the vital need for security guarantees should Ukraine find itself in negotiations that require territorial concessions. If there are to be negotiations, there has to be credible deterrence, Stent remarked, highlighting the potential for Russia to regroup and pursue its objectives if not adequately deterred. The backdrop for these discussions is stark. The current military dynamics suggest that Ukraine faces significant challenges in regaining territory lost to Russian occupation since February 2022. While there may be a willingness among some Western allies to support Ukraine, the absence of robust U.S. military aid casts a shadow over any peace talks. Stent pointed out that without American air power and explicit support, European military presence alone may not suffice to deter Russia's ambitions. In this context, the upcoming peace talks involving Trump, Zelensky, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, as indicated by Ukrainian advisor Mikhailo Podolyak, are laden with uncertainty. Podolyak expressed optimism about the negotiations but acknowledged the difficulties of achieving a ceasefire given Russia's current posture. "We can find the instrument of pressure on Russia," he stated, emphasizing the importance of international law as a framework for negotiations. However, he insisted that discussions should not compel Ukraine to concede its territory. As negotiations loom, analysts are questioning whether Russia genuinely seeks a peace deal or whether it perceives an opportunity to exploit shifting dynamics under a Trump administration. Stent suggested that Putin may view the current moment as advantageous, believing that a Trump-led U.S. could yield concessions favorable to Russia without formal negotiations. "Putin has determined that Russia must win this war," she said, suggesting that the Kremlin's strategy may hinge on waiting for Western resolve to wane and for public sentiment in Ukraine to shift. The geopolitical implications extend beyond Ukraine. Russia's growing ties with countries like Myanmar, whose military leader Min Aung Hlaing recently visited Moscow, reflect a broader alignment of authoritarian regimes seeking to bolster their positions amidst Western sanctions. This partnership underscores a mutual interest in fostering military cooperation and undermining international norms, as Myanmar's regime relies on Russian military support in its ongoing conflict with pro-democracy forces. As the international community watches these developments unfold, the specter of autocracy looms large. The intertwining of Trump's foreign policy aspirations with Putin's autocratic ambitions raises critical questions about the future of democracy on the global stage. Matthew Sussex, an associate professor and expert in strategic studies, articulated concerns about the alignment of interests between the two leaders, suggesting that their visions create a perilous world order where the strong dominate and the weak are subjugated. Looking ahead, the prospect of a peace deal remains uncertain, especially with both Russia and the U.S. potentially benefiting from a prolonged conflict without significant territorial concessions from Ukraine. As Ukraine navigates the treacherous waters of international diplomacy, the need for a coherent strategy that aligns with its sovereignty and security remains paramount. The future of Ukraine, the integrity of its territorial claims, and the stability of the international order hang in the balance as these high-stakes negotiations unfold. For Ukraine and its allies, the challenge will be to ensure that any agreements reached do not come at the cost of its national integrity and democratic principles, in a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy. President Donald Trump announced a temporary halt to intelligence sharing with Ukraine, raising alarms about the country's ability to sustain its defense against Russian aggression. The decision, which coincided with heightened tensions following a contentious meeting between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, underscores a precarious moment in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. As reported by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, the U.S. intelligence cooperation has been paused amid questions regarding Ukraine's commitment to the peace process. Ratcliffe indicated that this measure could be reversed if progress is made in negotiations. President Trump had a real question about whether President Zelensky was committed to the peace process, Ratcliffe stated during an interview. This pause in intelligence sharing is particularly alarming for Ukrainian forces, which have relied on U.S. intelligence to identify Russian military positions and coordinate their defensive strategies. Zelensky has publicly expressed regret over the Oval Office confrontation where Trump criticized him for not adequately thanking the U.S. for its support. In a recent social media post, Zelensky described the meeting as regrettable but reaffirmed his readiness to negotiate for peace. "We must find the strength to move forward," he said, emphasizing Ukraine's desire for a comprehensive peace agreement rather than a mere ceasefire. The backdrop to these diplomatic tensions is a recent Russian offensive targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which has claimed lives and left many without power. Amid these developments, the Ukrainian leadership is seeking clarity on U.S. military aid, which has been a lifeline for their defense efforts since the war escalated in February 2022. Zelensky noted that he had not received official confirmation about the aid suspension and directed his defense and diplomatic teams to seek clarification from their U.S. counterparts. While the U.S. has suspended military aid, it has also opened discussions on a potential minerals deal that Zelensky claims would enhance Ukraine's security. During a congressional address, Trump revealed that he received a letter from Zelensky expressing Ukraine's willingness to negotiate a comprehensive peace deal, underscoring the necessity of U.S. leadership in these discussions. Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer, Trump relayed, signaling a potential shift towards a more diplomatic approach. The Kremlin has reacted cautiously to these developments, with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov acknowledging Zelensky's openness to negotiations as a positive sign. However, analysts warn that the halt in U.S. intelligence sharing could embolden Russia to capitalize on Ukraine's vulnerabilities, potentially leading to further territorial gains. Yulia Shapovalova, reporting from Moscow, highlighted that while Moscow may welcome reduced U.S. support for Ukraine, the ongoing commitment of other allies could mitigate some of the impact. As Ukraine grapples with the implications of U.S. policy changes, European allies remain steadfast in their support. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has reiterated the importance of U.S. involvement in achieving a sustainable peace, while other European leaders have signaled their readiness to bolster Ukraine's defenses independently of U.S. aid. This dynamic illustrates the shifting landscape of international support as the war continues to evolve. Ultimately, the unfolding situation serves as a reminder of the delicate balance in international diplomacy amidst conflict. With both sides expressing a desire for peace, the coming weeks will be critical in determining whether negotiations can lead to a meaningful resolution or if the cessation of U.S. intelligence sharing will deepen Ukraine's struggles against a formidable adversary. As the world watches closely, the potential for a renewed commitment to peace talks remains a glimmer of hope in a conflict that has already claimed countless lives and reshaped geopolitical alliances.